where we help you improve your English while discussing interesting topics. I'm Adam, and today, as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Julia.
Hi, Adam. Hi, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us today. We hope you're ready for another great episode. How are you today, Adam?
I'm doing well, thanks, Julia. I'm excited about today's topic. It's something that's so important for all of us, whether we're parents, teachers, or students. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Julia?
I'm doing great too. And yes, I agree. Today's topic is really close to my heart, and I think it's going to be a great conversation. So, what are we talking about today, Adam?
Well, Julia, today's episode is all about the role of parents in supporting children's education. We know that education is key to a child's future, but it's not just about what happens in the classroom. The support that children get from their parents at home can make a huge difference in how well they do in school and in life.
Absolutely, Adam. Parents play such a crucial role in their children's education. From helping with homework to encouraging them to do their best, there are so many ways that parents can be involved. And it doesn't matter if the parents are busy or if they don't have a lot of experience with the school system. There are still simple things they can do to support their children.
That's right, Julia. And in today's episode, we're going to break it down and talk about some of those simple but powerful ways that parents can support their children's learning. We'll be covering everything from creating a positive learning environment at home to staying in touch with teachers and motivating children to do their best.
And to help us with this discussion, we have a very special guest with us today. He's someone who has a lot of experience in this area, both as a parent and as someone who's worked closely with schools and teachers. Please welcome Michael.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Adam and Julia. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about this important topic.
We're so happy to have you with us, Michael. Before we dive into the discussion, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your experience with supporting children's education?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I'm a father of 3, and my kids are all in different stages of their education. My oldest is in high school, my middle child is in middle school, and my youngest is just starting elementary school. So, I've been through a lot of different phases as a parent, and I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't when it comes to supporting my kids in their education.
That's great, Michael. It sounds like you have a wealth of experience to share with us. I'm sure our listeners will find your insights really valuable.
Yes, definitely. We're really looking forward to hearing your perspective, especially since you've had to support your children at so many different stages of their education. And I know that many of our listeners are parents who are also trying to figure out the best ways to help their children succeed in school.
Absolutely, Julia. And I think one of the most important things for parents to remember is that they don't have to be experts to make a difference. Sometimes, just being there and showing that you care can have a huge impact on a child's motivation and confidence.
That's such an important point, Michael. I think a lot of parents worry that they don't know enough to help their children with their schoolwork, especially if they're busy or if they didn't have the same opportunities when they were growing up. But like you said, just being involved and showing interest can make a big difference.
Yes, and that's exactly what we want to focus on today. Practical ways that any parent can support their child's education, no matter their background or circumstances. We'll be talking about how to create a positive learning environment at home, how to communicate effectively with teachers, and how to encourage and motivate children to do their best.
And of course, we'll be hearing from Michael about his own experiences and the lessons he's learned along the way. We'll also have a Q&A session later in the podcast where we'll answer some questions from our listeners about this topic.
That's right. So if you're a parent, a teacher, or just someone who's interested in education, this episode is for you. We'll be keeping things simple and easy to understand, so even if you're just starting to learn English, you'll be able to follow along.
And don't forget, if you have any questions or comments during the podcast, you can reach out to us on our social media channels. We love hearing from our listeners and getting your feedback.
Yes, we do. Now, let's get started with our discussion on the role of parents in supporting children's education. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive in.
So, Julia, before we get into the main discussion, I thought it would be nice for us to share a little bit about our own experiences with education. I think it's always interesting to hear how different people were supported by their parents when they were growing up. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea, Adam. After all, everyone's educational journey is unique, and it can really shape who we become. For me, education was always a big focus in my family. My parents were very involved, but in different ways. My mom was always the one helping me with my homework. She would sit with me at the kitchen table and we'd go over my assignments together. She wasn't a teacher, but she always encouraged me to try my best and made sure I had everything I needed to succeed.
That sounds wonderful, Julia. It's amazing how much of a difference that kind of support can make. My experience was a bit different. My parents were both very busy with work, so they didn't have as much time to help me with my schoolwork directly. But they always made it clear that education was important. They set high expectations, and they were always there to celebrate my successes. Even though they couldn't always be there physically, their support was always felt. They made sure I knew that doing well in school was my job, and they were proud of me when I worked hard.
That's so important, Adam. I think a lot of parents feel like they need to be sitting down with their children every night to help with homework, but that's not always possible. What really matters is the message that parents send about education. Whether it's through helping with homework, setting expectations, or just being there to encourage and motivate, parents play a huge role in shaping their children's attitudes toward learning.
Absolutely, Julia. And I think that's something we can all relate to, no matter where we come from. Parental involvement doesn't have to be about doing the work for your child. It's about being a source of support and encouragement. It's about creating an environment where learning is valued and where children feel confident to take on challenges and ask for help when they need it.
Yes, and that brings us to the bigger picture of why parental involvement is so crucial. Studies have shown that when parents are involved in their children's education, those children tend to do better in school. They have higher grades, better attendance, and they're more likely to continue their education beyond high school. It's not just about helping with homework, it's about being engaged in their overall learning process.
That's right, Julia. When parents show an interest in their children's education, it sends a powerful message that education is important. And that can be incredibly motivating for children. It helps them see that what they're doing in school matters, not just to them, but to their family as well.
And it's not just about academic success either. Parental involvement can also help children develop better social skills and self-esteem. When children know that their parents are there to support them, they're more likely to take on new challenges and to keep trying even when things get tough. It gives them the confidence to push through obstacles because they know they're not alone.
That's such an important point, Julia. Education isn't just about getting good grades. It's about developing the skills and confidence to succeed in life. And parents have a huge role to play in that. By being involved, they're helping to build a foundation for their children's future success, not just in school, but in everything they do.
Exactly, Adam, and that's why we wanted to talk about this topic today. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or even a student, it's important to understand the impact that parental involvement can have. It's something that can make a real difference in a child's life, and it's something that we can all work to improve no matter our circumstances.
Yes, and that's what we're going to explore in more detail today. We'll be talking about specific ways that parents can get involved, no matter how busy they are or what their background is. We want to provide practical tips and advice that anyone can use to support their child's education.
And with Michael here to share his experiences, we're going to get some really valuable insights that I think our listeners will find helpful. So whether you're a parent looking for new ways to support your child or just someone interested in the topic, stay tuned. We've got a lot of great information coming your way.
That's right. We're just getting started, and we have so much to cover. So let's dive into our first key point: how parents can create a positive learning environment at home. Now that we've set the stage, it's time to dive into our main discussion. In this section, we'll be talking about 3 key ways parents can support their children's education: creating a positive learning environment, communicating with teachers, and encouraging and motivating children. Let's get started with our first key point: creating a positive learning environment. One of the most important things parents can do to support their child's education is to create a positive learning environment at home. A child's learning environment has a huge impact on their ability to focus, stay organized, and feel motivated to do their best. But what exactly does a positive learning environment look like? And how can parents create one? For starters, it's important to have a designated study space for your child. This doesn't mean you need to have a whole room dedicated to studying, but there should be a specific area where your child knows they can go to focus on their schoolwork. This space should be quiet, free from distractions, and organized. When a child has a clean, calm place to work, it helps them concentrate and signals to them that this is a place where learning happens.
That's a great point, Adam. I know that when I was a student, having a specific spot where I could sit down and focus made all the difference. But I also think it's important to make the learning environment not just functional, but also engaging. After all, learning shouldn't feel like a chore. Parents can do simple things to make learning at home more fun and interesting for their children. For example, you could incorporate your child's interests into their study space. If they love drawing, have some art supplies nearby that they can use during breaks. If they're really into science, you could decorate the area with posters or books about their favorite scientific topics. Making the space inviting and relevant to your child's interests can help make study time something they look forward to rather than something they dread.
That's such a good idea, Julia. And it really emphasizes the fact that a positive learning environment is about more than just physical space. It's also about creating an atmosphere that encourages curiosity and a love for learning. Michael, you've been through this with your own kids. How have you gone about setting up a good learning environment at home?
Well, Adam and Julia, I've found that creating a positive learning environment is really about finding what works best for each individual child. With my 3 kids, I quickly learned that what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the others. My oldest, for example, needs complete silence when she's studying. So, we set up a quiet corner in her room with a desk, a comfortable chair, and a lamp with adjustable lighting. We made sure it was a place where she could shut the door and focus without interruptions. My middle child, on the other hand, likes a bit of background noise when he studies. So, he often does his homework at the dining room table, where he can still hear what's going on around the house. For him, The key was having a big, open space where he could spread out his materials. We also keep a basket of school supplies on the table so he has everything he needs within reach. And for my youngest, who's just starting elementary school, we've set up a little learning nook in the living room. It's cozy, with a small desk and some shelves where we keep books and educational games. She loves having a space that feels like her own, but where we can still keep an eye on her and step in to help when she needs it.
That's really insightful, Michael. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought into creating spaces that suit each of your children's needs. And I think that's such an important takeaway for our listeners. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to creating a positive learning environment. It's all about paying attention to what your child needs to be able to focus and feel comfortable.
Yes, and I love how you've managed to make those spaces not only functional but also personalized to each of your children. It goes to show that even small changes can have a big impact on how a child feels about studying. When kids have a space that they enjoy, it can make all the difference in their attitude toward their schoolwork.
Absolutely, Julia. And I think one of the most important things is to involve your child in setting up their study space. Ask them what they need, what makes them feel comfortable, and what they would like to have in their space. When kids have a say in creating their learning environment, they're more likely to take ownership of their study time and stay motivated.
That's a great tip, Michael. And it's a perfect segue into our next key point: communication between parents and teachers. Setting up a good learning environment at home is important, but it's just one part of the puzzle. Staying informed about what's happening at school and working together with teachers is crucial for a child's success.
Exactly, Adam. Communication between parents and teachers is so important, and it's something that can really make a difference in a child's education. When parents and teachers are on the same page, it helps to ensure that children are getting the support they need both at school and at home. But I know that for some parents, especially those who are new to the school system or who may not speak English as their first language, reaching out to teachers can feel a bit intimidating. One of the most important things to remember is that teachers are there to help. They want to see your child succeed just as much as you do, and they're usually very willing to communicate with parents. It doesn't have to be a formal meeting every time. You can start by sending a simple email or making a quick phone call to check in on your child's progress.
That's right, Julia. And it doesn't take much to stay informed. For example, many schools now have online portals where parents can log in and see their child's grades, assignments, and any comments from teachers. This can be a great way to keep track of how your child is doing without having to wait for report cards or parent-teacher conferences. But of course, nothing beats direct communication. Setting up regular meetings with your child's teachers, even if it's just once or twice a year, can really help you understand what your child is learning and where they might need extra support. It also gives you the opportunity to ask questions and share any concerns you might have.
Yes. And another important aspect of communication is sharing information with teachers about your child's learning style, interests, or any challenges they might be facing. Teachers often have many students, and while they do their best to get to know each child, they can really benefit from parents' insights. If your child is struggling with a particular subject, or if there's something going on at home that might be affecting their schoolwork, letting the teacher know can help them provide the right support.
I completely agree, Julia. In my experience, being open and communicative with teachers has made a big difference for my kids. For example, my middle child was having some trouble with math a few years ago. I made sure to speak with his teacher about it, and she was able to recommend some extra resources and strategies that we could use at home. We also set up a system where I would check in with her every few weeks to see how he was progressing. It wasn't a big-time commitment, but it made a world of difference for him. And it's not just about addressing problems. Regular communication can also help reinforce what your child is doing well. When teachers know that you're interested and involved, they can share positive feedback with you that you can then pass on to your child. It creates a positive cycle of encouragement that can really boost a child's confidence and motivation.
That's such a good point, Michael. Positive communication between parents and teachers doesn't just help with addressing challenges, it also helps celebrate successes. And when children see that their parents and teachers are working together, it sends a strong message that their education is important and valued.
Yes. And I think it's also important to remember that communication doesn't have to be all about academics. Teachers can offer insights into other aspects of your child's development, like their social skills, behavior, and overall well-being. By staying in touch with teachers, parents can get a more complete picture of how their child is doing in school and can provide better support at home.
Absolutely, Julia. And for parents who might feel hesitant about reaching out to teachers, I would just say, don't be afraid to start the conversation. Teachers appreciate when parents are involved, and even a small effort to communicate can have a big impact on your child's education. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be formal. What matters most is that you're showing an interest in your child's learning.
I couldn't agree more, Michael. Communication really is key, and it's something that can help parents, teachers, and students work together as a team. Now let's move on to our third key point, encouraging and motivating children. This is where parents can really make a difference in their child's academic success. Encouragement is such a powerful tool when it comes to helping children succeed in school. As parents, you have the ability to shape how your child feels about learning and education. When children feel supported and encouraged, they're more likely to stay motivated, even when the work gets challenging. One of the simplest ways to encourage your child is by showing interest in their schoolwork. Ask them about what they're learning, what they find interesting, and what they might be struggling with. Even just sitting down with them while they do their homework can show that you're invested in their education. It's all about being present and showing that you care.
That's so true, Adam. And it's not just about praising them when they get good grades or do something well. It's also about recognizing their efforts, even if the results aren't perfect. For example, if your child is working hard on a difficult math problem but doesn't quite get the right answer, you can still praise them for trying and encourage them to keep at it. It's important to let children know that making mistakes is a part of learning and that their efforts are valued.
Exactly, Julia. Encouragement shouldn't just be about the end result. It should also be about the process. When children know that their hard work is noticed and appreciated, they're more likely to develop a growth mindset. This means they'll be more willing to take on challenges and learn from their mistakes, rather than feeling discouraged when things don't go perfectly.
I can definitely relate to that, Adam. In my experience, one of the best ways to motivate children is to focus on the effort they put in, rather than just the outcome. For instance, my youngest was really struggling with reading at the beginning of the school year. She would get frustrated and start to avoid reading altogether. But instead of just focusing on whether she got the words right, we started celebrating every time she sat down to practice, even if it was just for a few minutes. We'd make a big deal out of the fact that she was trying, and gradually her confidence started to grow. We also found ways to make reading more enjoyable for her. We let her choose books that interested her, and sometimes we'd read together as a family. By making it a positive experience and showing her that we were proud of her efforts, she started to improve. And most importantly, she began to enjoy reading again.
That's such a great approach, Michael. It really highlights the importance of making learning a positive experience for children. When they feel good about what they're doing, they're much more likely to stay motivated. And I love the idea of making learning a family activity. It shows children that education is valued and that it's something everyone in the family is involved in.
And I think that's key, Julia. When parents are involved and show that they value education, it sends a powerful message to their children. It's not just about telling them that school is important, it's about showing them through your actions. Whether it's setting aside time to help with homework, attending school events, or simply asking about their day, these small actions can have a big impact on how children perceive their education.
Absolutely, Adam. And I've also found that setting goals together can be a great way to keep children motivated. Whether it's finishing a book.
How do your parents support your education at home?
They remind me to focus on my studies and help me stay organized.
Do they sit with you while you study?
Sometimes, but mostly they check in to see if I need help.
What about your daily routine? Do they help with that?
Yes, they make sure I wake up early and have a proper schedule for studying and breaks.
Do they encourage you to ask questions or explore topics outside your schoolwork?
Definitely. They always tell me to be curious and look things up if I'm interested.
Do they involve themselves in your school activities?
They attend parent-teacher meetings and school events whenever they can.
How do they motivate you when you're struggling?
They give me pep talks and tell me that mistakes are part of learning.
Do they talk to you about the importance of education?
Yes, they always say education is the key to a better future.
Yes, they buy me books I like, and sometimes we read together.
How do they balance helping you and letting you work independently?
They guide me when I need it, but let me solve problems on my own first.
Do they limit distractions at home while you're studying?
Yes, they make sure the TV isn't too loud and ask everyone to give me space.
Do they reward your efforts or achievements?
Yes, even small things like doing well on a test, they always appreciate it.
That's wonderful. Do you feel their involvement makes a difference?
Definitely. It makes me feel supported and confident to do my best.
Do your parents encourage you to participate in extracurricular activities?
Yes, they do. They always say it's important to explore things outside academics, like sports and art.
That's excellent. Do they help you balance your schoolwork and other activities?
They do. They make sure I don't take on too much and still have time for my studies.
What about teamwork? Do they encourage you to work with your classmates?
Yes, they always tell me teamwork is important. They even help me practice for group projects sometimes.
Do they talk to you about your goals and future plans?
Yes, they ask me what I want to be when I grow up and remind me to focus on things that will help me get there.
That's thoughtful. Do they share their own experiences to inspire you?
They do. They tell me how they worked hard in school and how it helped them later in life.
How do they react if you don't perform well in school?
They don't get angry. Instead, they ask me what went wrong and help me find ways to improve.
That's very supportive. Do they encourage you to take responsibility for your learning?
Yes, they remind me that my education is for me, and I need to take it seriously.
Do they help you learn skills beyond school subjects?
Yes, they teach me things like time management, how to stay focused, and even life skills like budgeting.
How do they encourage you to stay positive during stressful times, like exams?
They tell me to do my best, take breaks, and not be too hard on myself.
Do they involve themselves in finding resources to help you study?
Yes, they look for online resources, buy me extra books, and even suggest educational videos.
That's impressive. Do they encourage healthy habits that support your learning?
Absolutely. They make sure I eat healthy meals, get enough sleep, and exercise regularly.
How do they celebrate your progress, not just your achievements?
They notice the effort I put into things and tell me they're proud, even if I don't get perfect results.
Do they teach you to handle challenges on your own?
Yes, they say challenges are part of growing up, but they're always there if I really need help.
Do they encourage you to ask questions about the world around you?
Yes, they say learning isn't just about school, it's about understanding life and how things work.
That's so valuable. Do you think their support makes you more confident in your education?
Definitely. It's like having a team cheering for me every step of the way.
It sounds like your parents are setting a great example. Do they inspire you to support others, too?
Yes, they always say, if someone helped you, you should help someone else. It's something I try to follow.